Hello, and thank you for watching our Livingston Parish Algebra 1 EOC review. We're working on a sample test made of mixed problems from mixed states. We're on question number 17 to 32. Let's look at question 17. This is about these postage stamp rates, and they want us to make a prediction. First of all, what we need to do is we need to figure out if it's arithmetic or geometric. And I noticed that this goes up 17 cents. Each time it's going up 17 cents. As every ounce increases by 1, the price goes up by 17 cents. That tells us that it's arithmetic. One of the things, the easiest thing you probably could do is just go ahead and extend the pattern. So 11 ounces would be 17 cents more, would be 287. 12 ounces, 17 cents more would be 304. And then 13 ounces, the answer would be 321. So C would be your answer. Another thing you could realize is that these form an arithmetic sequence. The formula for arithmetic sequence, which we do need to know for the AOC, is A1 plus n minus 1 times a common difference. A1 is the first item in the sequence, and that is $1.17. And n minus 1, and our difference is 17 cents. So you could do this, $1.17. Plus n, we're looking for the 13th one. So you'd have 13 minus 1 times 0.17. And if you put that in your calculator, wait a second for my calculator to come up, you'll see that it works out on your calculator also. Calculator. That's not a calculator. Here's my calculator. Alright, so $1.17 plus n minus 1 times the common difference. Press enter, and I've got an error. Extra parentheses. Okay, so let's delete that parentheses, press enter. Alright, and we get 321. Okay. Next question, they want to know which graph represents this. First of all, I notice that it's less than equal to. That means it'll be shaded down. The line will be solid. Well, that is shaded below the line, so it might be A. That is shaded below the line, might be C. These are shaded above the line. That would be if it said greater than or equal to, so it can't be B or D. Remember always on your EOC, on your scratch paper, a good test taking strategy is as you realize that it can't be certain things, okay, cross those out so we know our chances is out of A and C. And we need to see which one of those it is. Okay, looking at this, the y-intercept has to be a -2. That's that one. And if we check the rate of change, it's positive 2/7, and it is shaded down, so C would be the answer. Okay, this one, when things are increasing or decreasing by a percent, okay, we know that's going to make a geometric sequence. And what they're looking for here is they're looking for the explicit form of that sequence. And that formula is A of n is equal to A1 times R, which is your common ratio, to the n minus 1. So A1 would be the first year, that's $100. Your common ratio is 1 because she will get 100% of the money back that she had already put in, plus she'll make 5% more each year. We use that as a decimal, n minus 1. So the answer is going to be 100 times 1.05 to the n minus 1. Okay, this you've got 243 adults and children. A represents the number of adults, B represents the number of children. So we know that A plus B is 243. And if we look at these systems, they all have that, so that's not going to help us much. Okay, and it says here that there are 109 more adults than children. Okay, so the number of adults will be the number of children plus 109. So C would be your answer. Okay, we have a system of inequalities and they want to know which points are a solution. So one of the things that you could do is you could graph these. Another thing you could do is just try them out and see if they work. And remember, each order pair has to satisfy both inequalities in order to be a solution to the system. So the first one is y is greater than a half x plus 1. And remember, that's a x, that's a y, so we'll plug in -1 and -3. That gives us -3 is greater. A half times -1 is -1/2 plus 1. -1/2 plus 1 is a half. And -3 is not greater than +1/2. So A cannot be an answer. Okay, I'm not even going to try the second one because since the first one was not satisfied, there's no point in doing the second one. Okay, let's do this one now. We've got, okay, y is greater than a half x plus 1. We'll plug in our 2 and our 1. That gives you 2 is greater than a half plus 1. 2 is greater than 1.5. That's true. Let's check the second one and see if this is right. You've got y plus 3x has to be less than or equal to 6. Okay, so we plug in our 1 for x and our 2 for y. That gives you 5 is less than or equal to 6. That's also true. So this one is true. In this particular state, more than one thing could have been true. Let's check and see if C works. Okay, so checking for C, you've got y greater than, here's my x and y, a half x plus 1. 0 is not greater than 1 plus 1, so C cannot be an answer. Let's try D. You've got y greater than half x plus 1. So that's 6 and that's 4. Half times 4 is 2 plus 1. And so 6 is greater than 3. So that condition is satisfied. Let's try the second condition. Y plus 3x less than or equal to 6. And remember, that's x and that's y. So we have 6 plus 3 times 4. That's going to give you 18. 18 is not less than 6. So the only answer was B. Okay, and we want the slope of this one. And that graph is hard for me to see, but I know automatically it cannot be A or B because that line is rising. Those slopes are negative. Okay, and it's out of these two. I can kind of start here. I can see I go up 1 over 4. Rise of 1, run of 4. It has to be C. Okay, they want us to solve this equation for R. Okay, first thing I can do, I notice this P here is connected by addition. I can move it over here by subtraction. And that gives you A minus P is equal to PRT. We're looking for R. They're connected by multiplication. We can get rid of them both at the same time by division, because the P's will cancel, the T's will cancel, and so we're going to get R equal to A minus P over PT, which is choice D. Question 24, the real roots. They may ask you for solution. They may ask you for zeros. They may ask for x-intercepts. Those all mean the same thing. In math, root doesn't mean like a true root in math. A lot of times root means a solution. So let's just solve this. We know since it's degree 2 or higher, it has to be equal to 0, which we've already got. We factor, and we got to think what multiplies to give us positive 10, adds to give us negative 7. That's negative 5 and negative 2. And we know by the zero product factor property that if x minus 5 equals to 0, then when x is 5, 5 minus 5 will make that true. We also know that if x minus 2 equals 0, then if we plug in 2 for x, 2 minus 2 is 0. So our answers are 5 and 2. A. They may ask you to graph this thing, okay, using the roots. So you'd have 2 and 5 for your roots. The y-intercept is positive 10. There's the y-intercept. We know this is concave up, since the leading coefficient was positive x squared. So there are your roots. There's your y-intercepts, so we connect. And we know the graph would look something like that. They may ask you to find the vertex. And remember, your vertex is always halfway between the two roots. Midpoint, midpoint, what do? Add them together, divide by 2. So 5 plus 2 is 7. 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. And you would plug 3.5 into that thing there to find the vertex. So it's x squared minus 7x plus 10. You plug in 3.5. And this probably would come in like on the calculator part of the test. Okay, so we'll use our calculator. So we plug in x squared minus 7x plus 10. Press enter. Okay, and we get negative 2.25 for the y number. So we know that at 3.5, negative 2.25, that's where the vertex would be. I definitely, if I were you, would make sure I reviewed how to find the vertex of a parabola. They may ask, what is the minimum of this parabola? And the minimum is negative 2.25. That's the lowest the y number will go. They may ask you for the domain and range of that parabola. Okay, and so the domain, it goes infinitely to the left, it goes infinitely to the right, so your x numbers on the domain would be all of the real numbers. They may ask you for the range. Remember, range is the y number. Since the minimum value is negative 2.25, y will be anything greater than or equal to negative 2.25. Make sure that you can tell the domain and range of a function for our EOC. Okay, all right, they want us to solve this formula for x1. I notice that they're dividing by 2, so if we multiply both sides 2, we've used the multiplication property of equality. That'll cancel out those 2's, and that gives you 2m is equal to x from the first plus x from the second. They want you to solve for x to the first, so the next step would be to subtract x from the second. So you get 2m minus x from the second equal x from the first. Okay, let's see. Yeah, you look. So the answer is 2m minus x from the second. So that would be our answer. Notice also, just looking at that, at the original problem, okay, that's basically what we're saying about midpoint. Midpoint, midpoint, what do? Add them together, divide by 2. Okay, which equation represents the horizontal line passing through 7, 5? So 7, 5, and of course you would have graph paper on your EOC. That's the point 7, 5, and we want the horizontal line passing through this. Okay, so the answer is either going to be x stuck at 5 or y stuck at 5 because you're looking at a horizontal line. Okay, all right. So I notice, okay, that 7, 5 is on there. Okay, and if we want a horizontal line, we have to remember, okay, that is where y is stuck at a number. For example, 1, 5 would be that point. 2, 5 would be that point there. So this means 1, 5, 2, 5. That's y stuck at 5. So y equal 5 is your answer. Okay, they want to know the solutions. Remember, solutions, roots, zeros are the same thing. Okay, so you got -2 and +4 for your solutions. Okay, what value of p will make this true? First of all, I notice that I've got numerator over denominator equals numerator over denominator, and I want to solve this for p. When you have one fraction equal another fraction, you have a proportion. That's right. So we can cross multiply. Okay, so we can multiply 6 times 4p minus 8. That's those two numbers. Is equal to 3 times 6p plus 4. We distribute now. That's 24p minus 48 equal to 18p plus 12. Now let's use our subtraction property of equality and move the variables to one side. That gives us 6p minus 48 equal to 12. Now let's use addition property of equality and add 48 to both sides. That gives us 6p equals 60. Now let's use division property of equality. Divide by p. Okay, and so you get 10 for your answer. All right, and that is your answer there. So 10 is our answer. Question 29. Okay, they tell you that this is function f of x, g of x, h of x. Okay, and they want to know which is true. Well, first of all, notice that f is linear, g is quadratic, that's the parabola, and then h is exponential, which means x is an exponent. They want to know, first of all, will f of x always be greater than g of x? In other words, for these two functions, will the y number always on one always be greater than the y number on the other? Well, here it does look like that is true. But we know that linear keeps on growing just the same rate. But then we also know that parabolas, eventually you can tell by looking at these graphs. I'm going to extend this, pull it down. If we keep on going, that's going to eventually look like this. And then from then on, your y numbers on the parabola will be greater than the y numbers on the linear. So the linear y values will not always be greater than the y values. Eventually it's going to change, and the parabola y values will be higher than the y values on the linear. Okay, well, let's see. G of x, that's a parabola. Will it always be greater than h of x? Okay, well, if you keep on extending this, and go infinitely higher, pull that on down. Okay, what you're going to see is eventually your parabola, this will eventually be high, the exponential will be higher than the parabola at some point in the future. And so what will happen is that y value will be higher. See if I can get that to go any further down. All right. So eventually, if you keep on going, yes, this parabola will keep on doing this, but then the exponential will go higher. If you remember in class, we had a problem where people got sick, and they got like really, really sick. And remember, eventually the whole world caught our virus. That's because exponential functions, when they take off, they go faster and crazier than just about any other function that we have seen in Algebra 1. In fact, they are the fastest growing functions, if anything, that we've seen in Algebra 1. So the exponential function is going to eventually exceed them all. So D would be your answer. Okay, the length of a rectangle is 3 times its width. And then the perimeter of the rectangle is greater than 48 centimeters. Okay, which inequality represents all the possible lengths in centimeters of the rectangle? Okay, well, first of all, the length, L, is 3 times its width. So I'm going to take just a second and let that be W, and then the length will be 3W. I'm doing that because that's the smallest. Okay, and then we're talking about perimeter, and the perimeter is greater than 48. Okay, so what we're going to do is we need to find the perimeter all the way around. So we know that the perimeter is 8W total. Okay, and we know that that is greater than or equal to 48. If we divide both sides by 8, W has to be greater than or equal to 6. Okay, but they're not asking us about W, they're asking us about length. It's 3 times the width. Okay, so if the minimum width is 6, the minimum length has to be 18. I see also I made a mistake here. I should have just said greater because they're only talking greater. But once again, if the minimum width is very close to 6, then the minimum length has to be very close to 18. Okay, 31. Which statement is not true? Okay, well, the median, remember, in a box and whisker point is quartile 2. And the median of industry is the greatest median value. Okay. Service has the range with the least value. Remember, range is highest minus lowest. Okay, so definitely if you subtract 80 minus 5, the range for this one is 75. The range here would be 60 minus 10, and the range would be about 50. Service industry, the range is about 45 minus about 5, so the range is 40. Okay, all right, that is true, so that's not our answer. Okay, and then it says agriculture has the range with the greatest value. That is also true. All right, it says industry has the interquartile range with the least value. Okay, and if you look here, okay, interquartile range is quartile 3 minus quartile 1. And if you look here, quartile 3 on agriculture was 35. Quartile 1 was about 15, so the interquartile range here is about 30. On industry, the interquartile range is about 55, okay, or about 50, and then 35 is quartile 1. Its interquartile range would be 50 minus 35, or 15. But if you look at services interquartile range, their quartile 3 is about 40. Their quartile 1 is 25. And then 40 minus 25 is 15. So that's the smallest interquartile range. 40 minus 25 is 15. And this was 50 minus 30. It's about 52 minus 35. You can tell this rectangle is a little longer than that rectangle here, so that interquartile range is more than that. Make sure you review your box and whisker plots for the exam, by the way. You may be asked for the 5-number summary of any box and whisker. And what are the 5-number summary again? Okay, remember it's the maximum, the minimum, quartile 1, quartile 2, quartile 3. Also remember that for any box and whisker, what percent of the data lie below quartile 2? The answer is 50%. What percent of the data lie above quartile 1? And the answer is 75%, because that's 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. They may ask you what percent of the data lie below quartile 3. That answer would be 75%, because that's 25%, 25%, 25%. Okay, and our last question in this video is to solve an inequality. People forget this all of the time, so let's make sure we review. First step you need to do is you need to subtract 5 from both sides. That gives you that negative absolute value of x plus 4 is less than or equal to negative 8. That's a 1 there. Let's divide. That gives you x plus 4 absolute value greater than or equal to 8. And remember, when you have absolute value problems with inequalities, you have to separate them. So absolute value, the first way you separate it is the first one. You copy it down just like it is without the absolute value. This is a more than problem, so we're going to use the word or. That's a clue right there that either probably that one or that one's going to be the answer. And then the second is you keep these two numbers here, x plus 4. But it's like the day we made the lemon batteries. Remember, we went in the positive direction, and then we switched the little poles around and we went in the negative direction. Okay, so we need to work this one now. And the positive direction is x greater than or equal to 4. If you subtract 4, you get x less than or equal to negative 12. So D would be the answer. Okay, and that concludes our video for the mixed review questions from the mixed states, questions 17 to 32. Thanks for watching.